Hello, masibhoti semawethu sinamkele kwisiqendu sethu sale veki senkqubo yenu enithanda kunene Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. And of course, I'm your host, Siphiwo Nzawumbi. Ukhumbuleke nawe ukuba uzawufumana ithuba lokuba uthabathe inxaxheba kule nkqubo yethu namhlanje ngokusala umnxeba phaa kwinombolo yethu, it's 011 714 6918 or 6919. Usenosithumela ke ne-email phaa ku-consumer@sabc.co.za. Kanti kuyasifumana naphaa ku-Facebook and Twitter, it's @Yilungelo Lakho, #Yilungelo Lakho. The latest rollout of load shedding has left consumers with a bitter taste. Now, many are burdened with the costs and inconveniences resulting from the blackouts. These include people spending hours in traffic due to out-of-order traffic lights, exposure to crime and insurance costs. And those in businesses have lost stock and income because of interrupted business hours. But what can consumers do to cushion themselves from the blow? Well, before we tackle that issue, let's quickly have a look at this week's insert.
Titaladi emakhaya kanye nemabhizinisi kusebumnyameni. Labanye bathi lokhu kumele sikujwayele. Kwanyalo lenkampani yagesi ithi ayikwati kumelana netidzingo tagesi. Kepha sifike kanjani kulesimo?
Remember, some of our power stations are using water, others are using diesel. So over the last few weeks, we had difficulties in securing diesel reserves, and also our water was depleted. And then some of our power stations are very old, and as a result, they are prone to sort of mechanical failures.
Baqophesha bagesi bathi Eskom yayalwa ngalokunganakekelwa tindzawo letiphehla gesi.
We have been doing maintenance where we could, and I must say that in some instances, obviously, we did not do or follow the regular maintenance program, because remember, our intention was always been to keep the lights on, and as a result, some of the maintenance project was sort of deferred.
Bantu sebaselene tindleko tekonakalelwa kudla emafrijini. Hayi lokho kuphela, kepha nengoti yekusha. Ngoba abantu basebenzisa emakhandlela noma babasa emililo. Bosomabhizinisi njenga John Da Silva bathi balahlekelwa kakhulu. John uthi kuleli viki gesi uhambe emalanga lamane alandzelana ema-hour lang-4 ngelanga.
Everyone loses income. I mean, you lose between 2,000 3,000 rands a day. No one will be able to do any kind of work. I mean, we're unable to cut meat for the customers, pack our shelves, do process stuff, border wars. We can't able to do anything.
Njengoba siyakhisimusi kukhona labathi besaba ukuthi kuhamba kwagesi tawuphatamisa kujabula kwabo.
For the Christmas period and early in the new year, there are no prognosis at this stage, at least, of load shedding.
Lokhu kubangwa kwekuthi emabhizinisi lamanengi atawubavaliwe. Kepha ngeliviki lesibili leminyaka lomusha bantu babuyela emisebentini netikolwa tiyavulwa. Eskom yakhathi indzawo tekuphehla gesi letintsatfu. Kepha kutawuthatha iminyaka lemibili noma lemithathu ngaphambi kwekuthi tintfo tibuyele esimeni. Lokho ke kusho ukuthi lokuhamba kwagesi kusetawuba ingcenye yetimpilo tethu. Nawa ke macebo ekwenta impilo yakho ibe ngcono kulesikhathi. Uma ngabe ugcwalisa ifridge yakho kakhulu, idla 10 kuya ku-20% agesi impahla ngayinye. Cima noma ugeze ifridge yakho uma uvakasha isikhathi lesidze. Njalo uma uvula i-oven yakho lizinga lekushisa liyehla. Ngakho ke vala i-oven yakho kuze kuvuthwe kudla. Uma ngabe usebenzisa ligedlela noma i-ayini lengasebenzi kahle, gesi uyamoshakala. Yilungise noma uthenge lenye. Ayina timpahla letinengi ngesikhathi sinye. Wonga gesi uma wenda njalo. Kukholakala ukuthi lamacebo angayehlisa imali oyibhatalela gesi njalo ngeminyaka. Zinhle Dlamini, Yilungelo Lakho.
sibambe ngazo sibini ke kumadlamini ngelonqaku ukuncokola banzi ke ngomba ochaphazela uluntu okanye umba kacimicimi wombane ukubaluleka kweliphulo le-load shedding lika Eskom kona ukuba sisixhobisa kanjani singabathengi masamkele iindindi zethu zanamhlanje apha estudio sinaye ke umbulelo Ncentezo yena ovela phaa ku-National Energy Regulator of South Africa samkele ke nokhulu phasiwe yena ovela phaa kwa Eskom. Later we'll be joined by Peter Nkuna from the Short-Term Insurance Ombudsman to talk about the implications of load shedding on your short-term insurance policy. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much.
I guess the question starts with you, Kulu, as Eskom. What did we do wrong to be at this point? Why are we here? Why are we experiencing load shedding?
Two ways to answer it, Spiro. The first part of it is that our power stations are old. Many of them are over 35 to 40 years old, and as a result, they are prone to have technical or mechanical issues, and that's what we've been trying to fix at the moment. And then the other bit is really that people should also remember that from 1997 up until 2007, government had taken a decision at the time to privatize Eskom or to bring in private independent power producers. That did not happen, and as a result, Eskom was only asked in 2008 to start building new power stations. Part of the reason why we're having issues now with electricity supply, it is because we do not have any new generating capacity, and secondly, we don't have our power stations, the ones that we are running at the moment, many of them are old. So basically those are the key reasons.
The key reasons. Well, earlier this week on Monday, Eskom CEO Tsetus Matsona was quoted. I'm just going to read. He said, there is no crisis at Eskom. I think the way Eskom gets reported on creates a perception of a crisis. What exactly is defined as a crisis according to Eskom?
Well, for us, it is indeed true. We don't see this as a crisis. Remember, load shedding is a way in which we take control of the system to make sure that it does not plunge into a blackout. So load shedding does not necessarily mean that there's no electricity. What it means is that there is electricity, but it's not enough to cater for everyone at the same time. So in other words, when we introduce or implement load shedding, we're doing it's a controlled measure from our side as Eskom to make sure that we keep the lights on, and we can only do that by rationing power among all the electricity users in South Africa. So indeed, it is true. There's no crisis. What we are facing it's a minor.
So this is normality according to Eskom. This is not a problem. We should just get used to it as part of the program. Is that what you're saying?
This is just how the systems all over the world, electricity systems are being run. If you're under pressure, you have to do certain measures, one of which is to sort of introduce a load shedding. So when we introduce load shedding, it does not mean that there's a crisis. For us, we'd be worried if the lights go off and then there's no control.
Okay, we're still going to come to that, Kulu. Mr. Ncentezo, being NERSA, where exactly do you come into the picture when it comes to load shedding?
Well, NERSA is a national energy regulator. We regulate 3 industries: electricity, pipe gas, and petroleum pipelines. On the electricity side, one of our licenses is Eskom. And as a regulator, what we do in regulation is that when people come to us with applications to want to distribute, generate, or transmit electricity, we grant them the licenses. And we grant them those licenses, and attached to those licenses will be conditions. That is how they should conduct that service. So we are not running these utilities, but we are regulating them from a distance. But we say to them, if you want to play in this game, these are the rules of the game, and we set the rules of the game. And we always audit them to make sure that they stick to the rules of the game.
Pertaining to Eskom specifically, when it comes to your regulation, like, what kind of a relationship do you have, especially in this season that seems to be very troublesome towards many South Africans?
You see, when it comes to this particular situation, I go back to what I said. We don't run them on a day-to-day basis. We say to Eskom, you want to generate electricity, you want to distribute electricity. Make sure that that service, the quality of that service, is a good quality, and also how you treat your customers. This is how you should treat your customers. So when events like these come about, I know that people rush and say that we should do something. We can't do anything when that is happening. Eskom has got a board of directors, they've got executive managers. Those are the people who should come in immediately and try to sort that thing out. But what we do as a regulator, after the fact, when the dust has settled down, we ask Eskom to give us a report as to what led to whatever happened. and we look at that report, analyze the report, and maybe have findings on that report. And the findings, we send them to Eskom and say, these are the findings we found out. And Eskom, can you tell us how you're going to correct this going forward to make sure that that doesn't happen again?
Okay, Khulu, let's come to you. What is the process of generating electricity among South Africans, especially now that we're talking about load shedding? You said that there is no complete blackout. It means that there is electricity stored or that is distributed to some parts. How does that work in terms of saving up energy for South Africa?
Well, generally, we as a company, we have 27 power stations. Many of them are coal-fired power stations. The other ones are a combination of gas. Others are using hydro schemes. And we also have 1 or 2 wind and solar power stations. So altogether, 27 power stations to give us electricity or provide us electricity that you and I are using at the moment. But electricity, unfortunately, for many people is you do not generate and store. You generate according to demand. If, for example, at the moment, South Africa needs 29,000 megawatts, Eskom has to provide 29 megawatts at the time. So you can't say you'll generate during the day and then store it somewhere. So that's how it works. And that's why most of the time in the evenings, that's when we experience a lot of constraint on the system, because at the time, many of us are coming back from school, from work and other places, and we start using our geysers, our stoves and other things that require a lot of electricity. And that's how we come under pressure. And from our side as Eskom, during that time, that's when we use our diesel-fired power stations. So those ones, in their specifications, they were basically designed to work between 2 and 3 hours.
Okay.
But because our coal-fired power stations have not been operating optimally, we have been using the diesel ones for over 16 hours a day, and that's why we have been having issues around the procurement of diesel.
All right. The phrase that says when the demand of electricity exceeds the available supply has become quite popular in the past. Where exactly are we standing when it comes to our supply in our reservations between now and 2015 January, perhaps? Are we safe? Are we going to have enough to keep us going?
So far, we are safe, and we would like to emphasize to the nation that for today and going into the second week of January next year, we do not foresee any possibilities of load shedding. However, we like to emphasize that the power system remains constrained still, meaning that we are urging people all over the country to continue to use electricity sparingly, especially people now, many of them will be closing at their workplace and elsewhere, and people going away for holidays. We're asking them to switch off things that are using a lot of electricity.
The question, though, has been what exactly are you talking about when you say sparingly? Definition to me, sparingly might be not to switch off the lights, and to somebody else might be, to switch off completely. Are you saying that we should completely halve the usage of electricity?
Let's take a typical example of a household which is going away to maybe for holidays. Some people, when they leave, they will leave their geysers and pool pumps running. So we're saying if you're going away, because you're not going to use your geyser during maybe the 2 or 3 weeks when you're away, we'd request that you switch it off. You'll only switch your geyser when you come back, when you need that hot water. And for things like pool pumps, we're asking our listeners and viewers that when you go away, maybe what you could do is to regulate the time, to switch it so that it only operates during the evening when the load has sort of reduced a bit.
Okay, just still going to come to that. Maspinda Segwe, being the regulator, Nina, you are supposed to look at the fact that these entities, including Eskom, in Dokbana, they're using the energy, or they are still by the law or by your regulations as per se. But since 2007, Eskom started building as power stations, and then immediately afterwards, in 2008, we started having problems of load shedding, which we started experiencing again this year. Do you think they were too late to start building a power station in 2007?
I don't think they were too late. It's just that they didn't add early enough, like in 2007, to start adding, because by 2007 they already had a lot of power stations. But as I said, they're getting old, they're aged, so they have to be maintained even more. There are more breakdowns and all of those things. But what you are saying to Eskom is just that when they maintain these machines, they must maintain them in such a way that when a machine is maintained, when it comes back online, it shouldn't break down quickly. They must make sure that the maintenance that they do is
Kodwa
effective.
awucingi into yokubana mhlawumbe they were a bit negligent in not preparing for this ngoba ngokucacileyo ngebayibona into yokubana iza kwenzeka into enje kuba kuzaba khona ucimicimi wombane kwiminyaka elishumi ezayo.
You see, what I know about Eskom is this, that Eskom is like us. They dance to the music of politics and policies. It's not Eskom's decision to build. The country's got what you call an IRP, that is Integrated Resources Plan, that says by a certain time, so much power should be built. Right.
Okay.
So Eskom cannot just build whenever they like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maske siqhubeke embukele ngxoxo yethu after the break. If you just joined us, we're talking about Eskom. Umbaga cimicimbi eske sawu experience as South Africans. After this break, we continue with our discussion. Well, phambi kokuba sihlabele phambili ke nengxoxo yethu namhlanje manikhumbuze ukuba nani ningathabatha inxaxheba kule ngxoxo yethu kusela umnxeba phaya ku 011 714 6918 or 6919. Our email address is consumer@sabc.co.za, and also you can touch us on Facebook and Twitter. It's @Yilungelo Lakho. And just shortly we'll be reading some of your emails, so better make sure that you send those emails to us as we'll be reading them shortly. Before the ad break, we were just talking, you were telling us about the regulation basically into wana urhulumente is responsible for telling us into kubana for telling Eskom, for giving orders to Eskom into kubana maqaliswe kwakhiwe power stations here and there. We've got Medupi, we've got Kosile, and we know that those have been ongoing power stations. We've been told about this production, and we've been expecting into kubana there will be better results at least at this stage. Then would you say that the government did not calculate the risk?
Well, I'm not going to say they didn't, but I say that whatever they did, it's such that we don't have the power that we need right now in the country. There is a plan, as I'm saying, the Integrated Resources Plan. That plan going forward, it says very clearly how much power has to come into the system and from what technologies. So going forward, I do believe that the country does have a plan. It's just a matter of now, how is that plan going to be funded?
Kulu, let me come to you. Mr. Matona again was quoted saying in the very same press conference on Monday, he said, we sell electricity below cost compared to other countries. We've spoken about this before. It's a matter of policy implementation, which we do not do ourselves. Could this possibly mean that consumers should be ready to pay twice the amount they're paying for electricity in 2015 in terms of tariffs?
Not necessarily twice, but what we are saying as a company is that the amount of money that we generate, that we sell to you and I, is actually lower than what we use to produce electricity. So it's essentially, it's almost like we are subsidizing everyone in the country. We are also buying power, remember, from independent power producers. We are buying at about 3 rand thereabouts. Or from 2 to 3 rand from them. That's how much they are producing their electricity for. And they are selling to us at that amount, about 3 rand, but we in turn have to sell to everyone in South Africa for about 67 cents. So meaning that we are subsidizing everyone. And as a company, that is not sustainable. We need to adjust our prices. This is what we call cost reflectivity. So essentially meaning that if to produce power costs you 1 rand, your selling price should be as close as possible to the amount of money that you're using to produce.
But when there are preparations, when it came to your budget or perhaps your fee, breaking down of fees and all that, didn't you think that this would possibly happen, especially in South Africa, because we've got many people who are dependent on welfare services? Then wasn't this accommodated in that planning?
It was accommodated, and this has a history to it, and I'm sure Mr. Ngateso can maybe speak more about it. Because remember, we were working in a regulated market. So we come up with proposals, and for example, in the previous financial year, 2 financial years ago, we had requested an 16% tariff increase. The regulator, in his wisdom, said, no, that will be too much because some industries will not be able, and especially households, some people are poor, and therefore it will be just too much for them. So the regulator decided to give us half of what we had requested, meaning that they gave us 8%. So that is where we are now. But the good news is that the regulator and everyone in the industry almost agrees that the price path of electricity needs to change from where it is, meaning that it needs to go up. It has to be a gradual increase, though, not a sharp one.
Mr. Kulu, you told us about the gradual increase. Let's come to you, Mr. Ngentezo. We hear about this gradual increase, and we know that in 2015, the tariffs might be 13% up. Is that gradual to you?
Well, it depends what gradual is. I mean, that's a relative term. The tariff for next year, the increase was supposed to be 8%.
So what took
But
it
now
up?
it went up to 12%.
Okay.
Because we've got what you call multi-year price determination. We had multi-year price determination 2, MYPD 2, up to 2013.
Yeah.
When we came to the end of 2013, we found that Eskom had under-recovered in terms of its revenues. So for MYPD 3, where we are right now, we had to add that amount, about 7 billion rand, that the customers owed Eskom to what they have right now. That's what took the tariffs for next year, the increases to 12.69%. So we look at Eskom's expenses when we do this. When they apply to us, they tell us these are our expenses, or this is going to be our expenses going into the 3 or 4 years or 5 years going forward. And we have to look at those expenses to see whether they are efficient. Because the Act doesn't say that we should just give them whatever they give, the cost they throw at us. We've got to interrogate those costs to see whether they are efficient. The 16 to 8% approval means that we looked at the cost that they put to us, and we found that those were not prudent enough. What they were, we had to give them was 8% instead. But having said that, when we make that decision, we've got this account that we call a regulatory clearing account, which says if they under-recovered during this MYPD period, we put that variance into that account.
But Kengo, when it comes to your regulation, because
Right.
you regulate, you are responsible for Eskom.
Yes.
And you were supposed to calculate the risk, I suppose. You were supposed to say, okay, Eskom, this is Imalinga Gasinigayona, whatever. And then this will cater for this in this period. But it seems like all of a sudden there are changes that were unexpected. Kubantu abaninzi ababukeleyo in South Africans, they feel like Eskom all of a sudden, uyabajikela.
Well, what happens when they apply to us? They apply for the 3 or 4, like now, MYPD 3, so 5 years going forward. So they give us projections, right? I can make an example with the diesel that they use for their gas turbines. What they applied for to us is far less than what they are actually using now.
Okay.
Meaning that whatever decision we come to as a regulator, it depends on the quality of the application that we get from Eskom. Their projections, you know.
All right. Kulu Maskesego, please tell us about the 3 stages of this load shedding. We know that we're told about phase 1. What is phase 1? What is phase 2? And what is phase 3?
Yeah, true. We have basically 3 stages that we are using as a company. The first phase, which is phase 1, is where we have a shortage of about 1,000 megawatts. And just maybe to clarify what it means.
What is, in
yes. So, for example, if we are on stage 1, it means that we need either to have new generating capacity or somebody within our system at least to get 1,000 megawatts, or we need to get it by asking some of our customers to reduce their load. If we do not get it, then we have to implement that phase.
Load shedding.
Yeah, stage 1
so
of load shedding.
So, load shedding?
Yes.
Phase 1.
Stage 1, yeah. Stage 1 essentially it means that most municipalities obviously have their own schedules, including Eskom. So most municipalities would shed load for about 2 hours. So for that period of 2 hours, if we're unable to recover that 1,000 megawatts, then we move into stage 2. Stage 2 is where we need about 2,000 megawatts. So, and if we do not get that, then we also go to stage 4, stage 3. And stage 3 essentially is what we have been seeing over the last few weeks. Where
Okay, let's just take a look. There's some graphics over there. February 2015, red, asiyambona into yokubana ured uthetha into yokubana kuzaba ne-load shedding eninzi. Yellow uthetha about mild load shedding.
Yes.
And then we have low. So in February 2015, you're trying to tell me, Ndogbana, we're only going to have 2 days of mild, of low, and then we're going to have 20-something days, almost 2 weeks of a complete. Is there possibility of a complete blackout? Can you expect that as South Africans?
We are
in
doing,
for 2 weeks in 2015.
We are doing everything possible from our side as a company to make sure that we do not see that picture that we see on our screens now. So what you see now are projections, probabilities. So we're saying if we do not get enough generating capacity from our existing power stations, remember during this break that we're going to see now, we're going to fix many of our generating units to make sure that when people come back from their holidays in January, almost everything that we need to have running would be sort of running optimally. So we're going to try very hard to make sure that we don't see that picture that you saw there.
Let's come back to load shedding part 2, phase 2. What is load shedding second phase?
Yes, second phase, it means that we need about 2,000 megawatts, and it takes about sometimes 2 to about 4 hours. But obviously it all depends on municipalities. They have their own schedules, and they advise their customers accordingly as to for how long they'll be out.
So January, it seems 2015, we're going to have what, second phase?
January, as it looks now,
there will be a lot of second phase
when we come back from the holidays. But I must emphasize that these are just projections. So if all our power stations are operating optimally, we wouldn't see that. We'll see a lot of green.
There's also been, before I get to that question, just take us to the third phase number 3.
Sure. Third phase is what we don't really want to go there, because third phase essentially it means that you'll be out of power sometimes 2 times a day. Some municipalities, for example, they will load shed you from, for example, 6 o'clock in the morning until 8, and then later on in the evening, maybe they'll load shed you from, say, 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock. We don't want to inconvenience people to that extent, so we're trying everything possible within our abilities to at least limit to stage 1 and 2, which is where you are only load shed for at least once a day. But even there, we don't want to go there because obviously it inconveniences a lot of people. In your intro, you mentioned...
so in March, we're going to have that stage 4, as I see there. Also in March, we're going to have 2 weeks of stage 4. Those, I know that you're saying that these are, just predictions of what might happen. But should we prepare ourselves for the West?
I would say prepare yourself so that if there's that eventuality, then at least you are prepared, or at least you know. So from our side, the reason why we issued those sort of potential calendar days of load shedding is for the nation to prepare itself. So basically, you can prepare in 2 ways. You can use electricity efficiently, or where possible, those who can, then they can install the solar geysers. People can also remove some of the lightings that they use in their homes and install the energy efficient ones. Those are some of the small things that they can do to help us to achieve that objective of staying green until our new power stations come online.
All right. Well, let's take another ad break. Please, after the break, we'll be joined by Peter Nkuna, who will be telling us basically about what will happen when you go to claim insurances zakho ufuna ufumana mhlawumbe buyekezwa kwezinto. Abanye abantu ke sebele bayoclaima kwathiwa awuzukwazi ukuclaim ngoba mhlawumbe kumbawo kuba ialarm yakho didn't go off. Izinto ezinjalo zasicacisela Peter. After the break, we'll be back shortly. Well, remember our participation line is 011-714-6918 or 6919. We'll be taking your calls shortly. And just talking about participation and what you were saying about today's subject, what you're saying in the streets, the word on the streets, here are the vox pops of what some of you think about this load shedding.
Angisoze ngithola ama-customer igiza inamanzi ashisayo, but inkinga ukuthi ugesi engekho asingezake sisebenze anything, and ulandlord uzobe funeka irent yakhe, of which irent yakhona sizoyikhokha kanjani singenama-customer engangeni.
Really forced ukuthi sivale inkinga ngileyo. Besides lana ke nasendlini when you get home satamele uhlale phansi awathi tabuya nini sinebantwana nayo yonke le nto leyo.
Ugesi uma ungekho angikwazi ugeza ithombe, ama-customer ayafika efuna ugeza ithombe, thola ukuthi electric ayikho and ngisebenzisa electric, angikwazi ukuthi ngisebenze electric uma ingekho, and inyanga mayiphela indawo kufanele ngikhokhe rent.
Well, that's what people think about this load shedding. Let's just quickly read some of your messages. Remember that you can send us your messages to @Yilungelo Lakho and #Yilungelo Lakho. And I'm just going to read some that we have right here on the screen. We've got Sizeka Bokolo, who says, "Ndidikwa nje into yokubana xa uzomka, they don't inform us ukuba uqhele kumka kwakusasa siyazilungiselela. Now that umka anytime asiyazi, well, part of that ndonakalelwe nayidecoder endlini kuthiwa ayikwangilombane ngoku ndisibona sele ndithenga enye Okay, we'll not read that. And then we've got Johnny Sibotuma, who says, good day. This load shedding crisis affected us badly, and it is time for Eskom to stop being protective and explain to the nation what actually the problem is. To go forward and to resolve the crisis, they, Eskom, should cut all fat bonuses they share amongst themselves and use those millions to deal with this load shedding crisis once and for all. And other companies should take over and provide good services. We are sick and tired of Eskom, and that's a lame excuse. And then we've got Sipo Siroto says, load shedding really affects us, but honestly, the majority of citizens in South Africa, we don't pay for electricity at all. So it's a mission for Eskom to improve and maintain power stations to supply electricity to all of us at once. There seems to be a bit of mixed emotions there when it comes to this issue of load shedding. Some are saying that you, Eskom, should cut the Fed bonuses, cut your salaries and provide, because there seems, we had the reports there that said good issue of funding. And some are saying that, well, abantu are not paying for electricity. Well, maybe that could also contribute. Well, Peter, thank you very much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Peter, sifuna ukucacisela basically when it comes to claiming insurances, what is most likely to happen now that we have load shedding? What's the risk?
There are mainly two types of risks. Those that tend to relate more to power surges, that is when the electricity comes back on, and then the risks that relate to when the power is off during the blackout. Among some of the things that you can think of in the domestic context is theft. When your alarm is not functioning, there's a higher risk of theft. Your appliances get blown up when you've got the power surge. You've got your electronic devices, you've got your food in the fridge going bad. There's even a risk of fire. All of these also apply to businesses. But in addition to that, for businesses, there are peculiar risks like your business interruption, loss of profits, and your stock going bad. And those are some of the things that people need to then take into account and make provision for in terms of obtaining adequate protection through insurance.
Okay. Kulu, the people who are saying there that besides you cutting the Fed salaries and whatnot, there seems not to be proper communication from your side as Eskom to citizens. We do understand that you have these schedules that you provide on websites, but further than that, what are you doing?
Yeah, and we would like to apologize to the nation mainly for the power outages that we've seen, simply because we've seen how it affects people in terms of the things that they have to do. Somebody was complaining about, for example, if you run a barber shop, for example, you can't afford to have a situation where while you are busy doing someone's hair and then the power is off. For that, we apologize to the nation. And as I said earlier during the conversation, we are doing everything possible from our side to make sure that we don't go back to where we were or partly...
and you're going to communicate better?
We're going to communicate better, and we've been doing that.
All right. Well, remember that you can also call in studio at 011-714-6918 or 6919. And right now I'm going to take Ndogozo, who's calling us from KZN. Hello, Ndogozo.
Yebo kunjani bhuti?
Sikhona baba kunjani?
Ngiyaphila. Ngisacela ukubuza bhuti la ukuthi abaka Eskom basuka bengazi ukuthi eminyakeni emibili noma emithathu kuzokwenzeka into kanje ngoba thina abantu bamabhizinisi siyakhawatheka bhuti. Oqala nje ukudla emafrijini kuyabola bhuti. Okwesibili izinto ezisebenza ngogesi, if ugesi uvela uhambe nje singanikwanga inothisi, izinto ziyasha, ama-computer, ama-fridge, into enjengalezo zivele zishe bhuti. Ngale time ubuye ugesi thina into zokusebenzisa asenazo seyishile. So Ntokozo lokhuluma wami sezalo wakhe ngiyacela.
Siyabonga kakhulu Ntokozo. Thank you so much for your contribution. Well, uzwele nawe lapha khulu.
Yangizwile and Ntokozo, and for that obviously, as we say, we apologize. We shouldn't be having this kind of things where abantu do not have electricity as well. But Ntokozo, hopefully you'll understand what we are working in an environment where we cannot just do things because we have to. But from our side as a company, whenever, like before 2007, we actually went to the government and said to them, we are projecting that electricity was going to go out around 2008. But the government wanted to privatize and there was nothing we could do. So we had to wait until government gave us a directive. And as Mr. Nketeso is saying, we are working in an environment where obviously your shareholder will have to tell you as to when and you should start building and what you should build.
Okay.
At this stage, we are just waiting, and government is actually coming to our rescue now to assist us with some of these problems.
Okay, Mr. Ncente, so let me come to you, Tata. When you talk about privatization of Eskom, ingaba kanye sithetha ngantoni? Ingaba utshintsho luzoba khona mhlawumbe if there is a possibility of that? We know that yesterday Minister Jeff Radebe also announced into yokubana there will be intervention from government when it comes to funding Eskom ngezinye izinto. Ingaba ke lonto when it comes to funding, when it comes to privatizations, zizawutshintsha kanjani ezo zinto? Zayichaphazela kanjani yonke lento?
Well, against that is a government decision. It's a policy decision. As a regulator, we can't say much about that. All we can do to regulate whoever is in place. So,
after regulation, I think we need to clarify that because people think regulation automatically think government. When you say regulation,
yes.
So when you say regulation, exactly what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's what I said earlier on, which is this: that as a regulator, we give them licenses. Generator, distributor electricity, and with that, we give them the conditions. Lake game, if game, these are the rules of the game. So we give them those rules of the game. The load shedding ends. I mean, the way they are doing load shedding now, they've got schedule and everything. That's what I'm trying to say. That in 2008, when this happened, one of the things we said as a regulator is that now you don't do this haphazardly. Right now, you're doing it haphazardly. You've got to, in future, make sure that you've got a schedule so that abantu bayazi ukuthi ngexesha elithile kuzogcinywa umbane for a period ethize so that bakwazi prepare for that. So these are the results of what we did in 2008. That's how we regulate. And also in 2008, Eskom came to us and said that been a load shedding because we didn't have coal. The power stations did. Because they had a few stockpiles.
There is wet coal.
Exactly, wet coal and all of those things in 2008. So we said to them you cannot have coal stock days as like 5 days. So we said to them, minimum must be 42 days. Right now, minimum is 42 days. We don't expect Eskom now to come to us and say that we're load shedding because we don't have coal. So that is what regulations is all about. We look at what caused a problem, and then we say, going forward, Eskom, we've got to correct that.
Let's come to you, Peter. Let's come to you. When it comes to ndipukelwe computer or ndipukelwe TV or decoder as ubesicho omnye viewers etu, and then the insurance refuses to pay. Like, is there a possibility of that happening? Especially the secure, we know that alarms are going to be off. What are the ramifications of this load shedding?
The essence of the response to that question lies in what your policy will say. In the same period of around 2008, we had similar experiences, and as a result of that, a lot of insurers then went and reviewed their policies. Some of them chose to completely exclude liability in those instances where there is load shedding and the risks are, according to them, too high for them to accept. And you would not enjoy cover at all if you are with such an insurer. Others opted for the route of recalculating the risk and including it in their risk factors and probably also accordingly increasing their premiums. And those insurers will today tend to continue to provide cover should those risks even.
So, Lilonge, it depends from insurance to insurance. There will be insurances that say, we do not cater for that.
That's
Same
correct.
like with natural disasters that they do not calculate for that.
That is correct.
Well, after the break, we'll continue with our discussion. Please remember, in the say Tabata Minglaba Yakopaya 011 714 6918 or 6919. After this break, we'll be taking your calls. So please make sure that you call in as we continue with our discussion. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back. Right now, we hear you say about the topic today. So let me start with your Facebook messages that you have sent right there. We've got Peter Ndlovu who says, however, we citizens affected should work with Eskom in having a major improvement of building power stations for each province in South Africa and combining the necessary ideas of meeting our electric needs and nature's safety in a suitable, cost-effective manner as possible. And that's been inspired by developed industries or countries rather. And then we've got Siyabulela Stofela who says, I think people should cooperate with Eskom because abanye abantu bawuthenga umbane instead bayawutsweba lonto ke iba lula ku Eskom. And then we've got Doka Lipota who says people must pay for electricity, period. It seems still there are clashing views when it comes to that. I think we should hear from our caller, and I believe that we've got Miselo who's calling us. Hello, Miselo. Yebo baba. Kunjani?
Mnumzane.
Yebo, siyakuzwa.
Ya, ngicela ukubuza ukuthi
Eskom xa umbane ehambisa kuza kanjani ukuthi angasithumeleli ama-SMS njengoba endla ngokwenza.
Okay. All right. That's a good point.
Ya omnye umbuzo. Bengicela ukuthi indwendwe zakho apho e-studio ke ziphendule yonke le mibuzo ngesintu ngoba abantu abachaphazelekayo ayingobantu abasazi bonke isintu yabona.
Siyabulela Mmiselo.
Abantu abachaphazelekayo ngabantu ofumana ukuthi ngenxesha isilungu esi
Omakhulu.
Ya emakhaya so lanto lena ifuna ukuthi ke njengabantu abamnyama njengabantu babona bangakwazi ukucacisa ngokubanzi nabantu bazi ukuthi ingxaki abajongene nazo xa nalelo loadshedding.
Ndiyakholwa into ubutata uNcentezi uzakwazi ukusinceda kuloo nto. Siyabulela kakhulu. Okay, we've got a caller from Pretoria. Hello.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello.
How are you this afternoon?
Well, thank you. How are you doing?
Just fine, just fine.
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion, please? The gentleman who is producing the program.
Okay. Sorry. Can you please? I think we just need to change that call. Can we have another caller, please? All right. All right, I think that those were basically our caller. That caller can be attended to by our producers, anything that is production related or whatnot. Kodwa ke khona ke isicelo Mr. Ncentezi ndiyacinga into bazosinceda kuloo nto. Kuthiwa khani niyibeke ngesintu lento omakhulu no-anti abapha emakhaya abakwazi kuyiva lento nitshoyo. Nithini kanye ngale load shedding? Mhlawumbe ke kulomba we-regulation ungakho icacisa into yoba iphulo lenu okanye ninefuthe elingakanani nina phezu kwa Eskom?
Njengoba senitshilo ukuthi thina as a regulator asimphetha ngo-Eskom ngohlobo oluthi everyday sipha kwa-Eskom senza i-decisions ngo-Eskom. Into esiyenzayo njenge-regulator sithi u-Eskom xa efuna i-license kuthi siyamnika le license sithi kuye u-Eskom. Eskom nje kuzofumana le license nje make sure ukuthi le electricity uzayinika abantu izohlala ikhona lonke ixesha.
Okay.
2 izaba affordable bakwazi uyibhatalela. Yaqona?
Sisazoyithetha ke nto your regulation especially abantu bathi abanye mababhatalela umbane abanye bathi kufuneka nibaningile abantu umbane kodwa ke ngoku maske sithathe uGeorge from Kangala. Hello George. Hello. Okay, it seems like we've lost George there. Besisaza ke kulombo insurance, you're still telling us wena Peter into kubana abantu bayakwazi uba bayoclaima ezinye insurances sithi they will cater, ezinye sithi they will not cater. But ke ngoku in a case where insurance, or how can we prepare ourselves best as abantu, households, nabantu abaqhuba amashishini, the business people, into kubana should that happen, and you know how can we cater for this, especially into njenge refrigerators, e-TV, nento ezinjalo?
I think the first thing would be to, if you don't have insurance cover, maybe you should start with that. I'm presuming that you've already taken all the other precautions that they would have given advice in terms of switching off, unplugging and all of that. But as an additional layer of protection, go and seek cover with a reputable insurer. Make sure that they would provide cover in those instances. If you already have a policy with an insurer, phone them up, find out if you would enjoy cover for that. If they are not able to provide the cover, or you cannot negotiate and reach some kind of a settlement, it might be time for you to move on and look next door. Perhaps they would be able to help you.
Maskasive ba uVuyani pha eGauteng uthini yena? Vuyani wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Sanibona njani?
Sikhona baba kunjani?
Siyaphila. Mina lento Eskom ngiphatha kabuhlungu. Ngoba sisomabhizinisi abasaqala zama impilo. Ngenxa ukuhamba kwagesi kanje size sashelwa ibhizinisi esithi sizame sithengisa kulona fast food. Kwemanje nje asazi sophila ngani lemisebenzi ayitholakala. Kubuhlungu ngempela lokwenza Eskom.
Vuyani ingaba niyazijonga i-shedding schedule le provider Eskom?
Sechecka ku-internet uthi angangcono mhlawumbe mangase kube into engaphuma nasephepheni la sokwazi uku-afforda
khona SMSs like the other caller said.
Yeah, or SMS ngoba manje sinenkinga ngempela.
Okay, siyabonga kakhulu baba.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Ake mawethu maske siphinde siubambe apho sijikele pha evenkileni. Asiyabuya after this ad break. Saqhubeka nomba wethu Chisibunzi. 0117146918 is the number to call, and we'll be taking your calls right here in studio. We'll be back shortly. Well, welcome back to our final segment of our show. Stabile phambili phaya ngenxoko yethu. Sithetha ke namhlanje ngomba ke Eskom ucimicimi kampani ochaphazela abantu abaninzi kumbandla we-South Africa throughout. Ngoku ke, gentlemen, I think we're going to start with you, Khulu. We know that there is a possibility in the load shedding might continue till January, February, or March. But then, what points would you give to, or rather, what alternative sources of energy can we opt for in the absence of Kumbani?
So, at this stage, we will do what we can, because obviously we can't build anything new now. It's just too late. Obviously, we have projects where we are trying to build, and they'll all only be finished around 2019-2020 financial year. Midupiko in Angola. Those are the big ones that we're building.
They'll be done when?
In 2019-2020.
Okay.
So we still have a long way.
Okay, in the absence of that,
yes. In the interim, what we are asking Abantu to do essentially is to continue to use electricity efficiently.
Is it wise?
I don't want to go there as people, because sometimes you'll have fires and then they'll say Eskom said we must use candles and whatever else.
Okay.
So we're just saying, the systems that you have in lane, if we the normal globes that we know, remove those ones and use energy saving ones.
Okay.
And also abantu who can still abafage ama solar systems.
Okay, Peter, just your final word, 1 minute. What do you have to say to consumers, especially those who have insurances perhaps that are not catering, or that to cater for damages as injured?
Well, I think the best piece of advice is to just make sure that your insurer does provide the cover and understand what type of cover you will enjoy. And yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Ngentezo, Nobatatu Nje. We're hoping also that right at home you had a very informative show. We wish we could go on and on. Let me also now just not only thank our studio guests, but also thank you right there at home for making time to be with us. Please note that this was our very last live show for 2014, and you can also hear how I speak that it was our last show. And from next week Friday, we'll be playing pre-recorded shows for you, so the program will not be off air. So also uting of Fridays, Yilungelo Lakho. From me, Sipho Kwanzaa, and the rest of the team, till next time, please have a safe festive season. We'll be back on air on our live shows on the 16th of January 2015. Please make sure that you drive safe. Arrive alive. Christmas emnandi. Till Friday. Goodbye.
Timpolo